Good Tuesday morning, everybody, and welcome to Lenny Melnick FantasySports.com. It's Tuesday morning, the 25th of February, the last Tuesday in the month. Oh, man, it's not going to be long before opening day. I can feel it in the air, can't you? And welcome to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports, everyone. Lenny and Andrea in Florida. Can't wait to hear how that went. I'm with you this morning. We're going to talk about some players, talk about some games from yesterday. Even though it's spring training games, I'm still into talking about them. But before we get into the games, let's talk about some players and how they're looking, if they're going to be able to be a fantasy relevant, a fantasy star. How about the Mets? Let's start with them. And Jed Lowrie. Remember Jed Lowrie? Remember in 2018 when Jed Lowrie was an Oakland Athletic and he was Mr. Clutch, Mr. Everything, and that year hit 267, average maybe not so great, but when you put with that the fact that he had 23 home runs and 99 RBIs in what was his walk-away season from Oakland, wow, everybody was excited about who would sign him in 2019, who he'd be playing for, what he'd be doing, would he repeat the 2018 success? And the answer was unequivocally no. Chat room, remember, he just couldn't put it together. He was hurt, couldn't play. And so last year for the Mets, he was not just a non-factor, it was non-existent. He was the non-powerless Yoenis Cespedes last year. What the Mets got out of those two guys last year was absolutely nothing. Remember? You know what I'm talking about. And so now he's coming back from that season-long injury, still not ready to appear in grapefruit games, left leg injuries. He is participating in drills. He is wearing a brace on his leg. There is no timetable for Jed Lowrie, and it will take him not only recovering from injury, he will be a functioning utility man. Utility man, superhero. That's what he's going to be, a utility man at best. And it'll take an injury to McNeil or Cano or even Rosario for him to have any guaranteed playing time this coming year. So maybe he's a late round selection. If you're getting around to picking Jed Lowrie late in drafts, and that tells me one of two things: you're in a really deep league or you've got a really bad team. But speaking of Cano, I want to stay with the Metropolitans for a moment. Mets manager Luis Rojas indicated that Cano is strengthening his legs. He expects Cano to debut in a Grapefruit League game around the end of this month, which is next week, or the beginning of March, again, about a week or so away. Remember, Cano, unfortunately for Cano, he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, but he also had quadricep and hamstrings injuries last year. He only played in 107 games. He did hit 256, 13 homers, 39 RBIs. He had 390 at-bats, and he's now entering his age 37 year. Time flies, doesn't it? It doesn't seem like it was that long ago when Robinson Cano was a young star with the New York Yankees. And now he's a veteran. He's an aged veteran at 37. Best days behind him, probably, for sure. But if he's healthy, I'm sure the Mets want to keep that left-handed bat in the lineup. He's got a hefty contract to go along with that hefty bat. And if he's healthy, he's going to play probably every day in the middle of an order. And the Mets order, not that bad. So I draft Robinson Cano. I probably draft him, midway through the draft, maybe towards the latter third of the draft. But we'll keep our eye on the injury situation there. Finally, with the Mets, Jacob deGrom. He will continue to face live hitters in batting practice only for the current time. Not slotted yet into the Mets rotation for the spring. They're taking it easy on him. DeGrom, tough luck pitcher, right? I mean, is there a tougher luck pitcher than Jacob deGrom? 2.43 ERA last year, 0.97 WHIP last year, 255 strikeouts in 204 innings last year, second straight NL Cy Young Award last year. And you would think with all of these things, his win-loss record would be incredible, right? He was only 3 games over 500, 11-8. With those gaudy numbers, only 11 wins, which is the main reason. He's the poster boy for why in fantasy baseball we don't chase wins. How about that? He's pitched 3 consecutive seasons with at least 200 innings pitched. He's a fantasy ace. I put him right there with deGrom, and you remember my show where I ranked starting pitchers, and I put them into tiers. I had a tier 1 of only 2, Cole and deGrom. He's currently the second pitcher off of most fantasy draft boards, probably going 8th or 9th overall. So the Mets are taking it easy with him this spring. They want him stretched out, but they don't want him pitched out. So deGrom not in the rotation yet. He's getting work out of the bullpen. And that's where we are with the Mets. Now, let's talk about the Brewers for a moment. The Brewers announced, or I read in the paper, Tom Haudricourt of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel said that I read today, this morning, getting ready for the show, Brewers starting pitcher Freddie Peralta. Remember Freddie Peralta? He's competing now for the 5th rotation spot. Now, he spent most of last year getting eaten alive out of the Brewers' bullpen. The team wants to give him another chance to make the rotation. He has reportedly, according to this article in the Sentinel, come to camp with a new pitch. According to the article, a better attitude, if you will. He spent the winter in the Dominican. He has resurrected his slider, trying to add now another pitch. And so he's looking to add a rotation status to his resume, competing with Eric Lauer for that 5th rotational spot for Milwaukee. Is he fantasy relevant? I don't think so, but I will say, my mantra is I want players who get opportunity. And, who knows? You may find something. You might find lightning in a bottle. And let's follow Freddie Peralta. Let's follow that 5th rotation. I know it's a 5th spot in the rotation. That means he's going to be pitching his other 5th starters also. I'm not a big Freddie Peralta fan. In fact, I'm not a Freddie Peralta fan at all. But I do think it interesting that the Brewers think he's improved enough over last year to be in the rotation or at least compete for that job. Now, another starting pitcher I mentioned yesterday. Remember I told you on Monday morning show that Eduardo Rodriguez of the Red Sox, I knew when I said that I was saying it wrong. I called myself immediately, right? You have to do that sometimes when you're doing podcasts on a Tuesday morning. And a chat room that is so, knowledgeable, right? You guys are just on the ball. I love when I mention things that I know are going to spark controversy and then reading the things in the chat room that follow when you don't agree with me. I do that on purpose, because I like to spark conversation. That's what this is about. Talking baseball, thinking baseball, having different perspectives. Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com, that's what we're all about. Putting out different perspectives so that we can have that discussion. It's like everybody can't be a Yankee fan like me. Thank God, right, Andre? I mean, you want a Red Sox fan somewhere. Red Sox fans want Yankee fans somewhere because when you're right or your team wins, you got somebody you can, poke fun at a little bit. You want a different perspective. If we all agreed, why have a podcast? Eduardo Rodriguez. I told you yesterday he tripped on the mound on his own spikes. That took some talent, right? And he fell down, injured his knee a little bit, but it didn't seem to be anything major. Well, on Monday, he threw 2 innings of live batting practice. He threw all his pitches without hesitation, without discomfort. And so the 26-year-old looks to continue the progression from last year. Boston's going to take it easy with him in spring training. I mean, if Boston has a chance to make the playoffs this year, it rides a lot on the 2 left arms in their rotation, one being Eduardo Rodriguez and the other being Chris Sale. He won 19 games, I told you that yesterday, and if he can build on that and be a 20-game winner on a Red Sox team that now is desperately in need of some great pitching, well, I love Rodriguez this year. I mean, where does he go in drafts? He's clearly a number 2. If something happens to Sale, he's their number 1 pitcher. That's right. So I'm looking at Rodriguez. Boston's going to stretch him out, but not overuse him this spring. They're concerned about the injury, sure, but by the fact he threw 2 innings on Monday, live BP tells me the injured knee is really not much of an injured knee. And we're going to get a lot of Eduardo Rodriguez this year. I told you also yesterday that Cincinnati Red outfielder Jesse Winker, this is sort of a catch-up and a follow-up on Monday's show on Tuesday. We got to see what happened to these guys. Winker, he injured his wrist, hit on the wrist by a pitch. X-rays came back negative after being hit by a pitch during a Cactus League game on Sunday. After being hit, immediately removed from the game, checked out by team trainers. He has a big bruise, a boo-boo, on his left wrist and forearm, but no broken bones, no problems with anything other than it's just plain sore. So good news for Winker and the Cincinnati Reds. I was reading about a team I think that's really interesting and intriguing this coming season, Toronto. And there's several reasons why. And the obvious reason is the excitement caused by the starting lineup. Now we've got Biggio with a year. We've got Bichette, who had part of a year. We've got Guerrero, who's had a year. They already had some other good young players in Lourdes Gurriel and Jansen, Teoscar Hernandez. And now you put those players together, Rowdy Tellez. I mean, you just got a good core young group of hitters. So the question with Toronto, I know they're young, but the question with Toronto more lies with their pitching. So they go out and they sign Ryu from the Dodgers, who, it's going to be a different game, played in the American League. Of course, he'll have a designated hitter, but played in the American League, played in the American League East. It's a different world. It's a different world from where you came from. That was a theme song show from one of the TV sitcoms. It was a different world. That was the name of the show. Well, now he's the ace on the Blue Jays. And they have a young pitcher by the name of Nate Pearson. So let's talk a little bit about Nate. Because I love Nate Pearson. I love him in fantasy. I love him in reality. I've got this crush on Nate Pearson as a fantasy baseball player. Top pitching prospect. General Manager Ross Atkins came out and said he believes that Nate Pearson will impact the club at some point during the 2020 season. Draft him. Draft him. Draft him late if he's there. With only 18 innings pitched at AAA last year, Nate Pearson, who throws a fastball in the upper 90s, he's going to have plenty of conditioning. He is in Toronto for the long haul. He is Major League Baseball's 8th overall prospect. Dynasty appeal for certain.